Hey, Cincinnati. Welcome back to another episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. This is episode 441. That's a lot of episodes, guys. 441 episodes of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. And while we don't have a game to recap and talk about tonight, we do have a lot to look forward to with Decision Day on the horizon and the MLS Cup playoffs getting started soon after that. Welcome to the show. My name's Brian. Let me bring in our co-host here, Justin Blair. It's been a while, man. Welcome back.
It has with us, for sure. I think I got in a couple episodes ago with Jason and Jose. But yeah, it's been a while, man. I've been kind of doing a lot of crap. I'm like
That's the reason not to be on the podcast, I guess.
Severely ADHD, so I get into a lot of stuff. And I got 2 little kids, wife. I was doing coaching, and that was a lot of fun. We were the Purple Dinosaurs, and apologies to anybody that had to play us because those kids were feisty, man. It was fun coaching a team that you had to rein in a little bit, like, all right, let's chill out.
The Purple Dinosaurs, though, let's go back to that. Where did you let the kids name their team? Is that how this goes? All right.
Absolutely. They wanted, we asked them what do you want our mascot to be? And they said dinosaurs. And our uniforms were default purple. So I was like, all right, we're the Purple Dinosaurs now. And so we were terrorizing. We play in Boone County and down here, and I mean, you probably heard the dinosaur roars every Saturday, and I apologize if that woke you up, but it was a lot of fun.
It sounds like it was a lot of fun. I would love to hear more about that sometime. Let's talk after the show, maybe. And Coach, welcome back to another episode, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I mean, not as well as Justin Blair getting his coaching career started with the Purple Dinosaurs. Rupesh had the same idea that I did. I thought Barney right away. That's the only purple dinosaur I could think of. Man, you give me the choice of coaching little kids and coaching anyone else, and I'm going to pick anyone else every time. It is so hard to coach at that age. You can't get anything done because people are playing in the dirt, kicking balls at each other, or just kicking each other's balls, just over and over. It is maddening. So I'm glad you had fun with it, Justin. You want to come coach my son's team? Because I'm doing that and I'm not having fun.
I'll do it, man. Yeah, I was the default babysitting the players on the sideline coach, and man, those kids, the personalities, it was great. They were telling me all about their Halloween costumes, favorite Halloween candy, what their favorite movie they recently. I mean, the kids that are 5-6 years old, they just love to spill information out, and I'm one of those people that love to listen to it.
And I'm like, they want to tell me about their Halloween costume. I'm like, yeah, but tell me what you're going to do when you shift inside from the right outside defender in our 2-5-2 formation, guys. Tell me. And they won't. What am I doing wrong, Justin?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I just want to sit back and listen to this conversation all night, but I don't think we can spend a whole lot more time there because we do have a show to get to. We do have some orange and blue dinosaurs maybe to get to this evening. We do want to thank Apollo Home, though, our sponsor for the night and for the show. Apollo wants to remind you that during this weird in-between season of it's not summer, but it still kind of feels like it, now is the perfect time to get your HVAC system checked out before the cold winter weather is here. We are bringing back the $29 coupon for CST listeners for your preseason furnace tune-up. And as always, keep them in mind if any electrical or plumbing need arises. Give them a call, send them a text, or schedule online at apollohome.com. Guys, we are, Apollo mentions the winter weather coming, and I don't know how the weather's turned in Cincinnati. We're in sectional championship in Indiana for soccer right now. And we had 90-degree weather the week before. And I was like, man, it's always so cold during sectionals. And the day before, the rain came in, it dipped to 50 degrees. And I was like, all right, here we go. This feels like sectional soccer. Finally, here we go. Playoff soccer is here, which we're going to talk about more tonight in MLS with playoffs on the horizon. Before we get there, though, we got best and worst to talk about. Without a game, this was a little bit hard to we had to dig deep to find a best and a worst this week. So, Justin, I'm going to let you kick us off, man.
Mine was easy to find. You got Sam Urbach over at Xavier University just absolutely tearing things up. I got to watch her a lot during the summer play for Kings Hammer FC. Sam Urbach is one of the best players that we have around this region. She was Big East Offensive Player of the Week this week with her 2 goals and assist against Seton Hall. Her assist total for the year is top of NCAA with 11. So they're, I mean, if you get a chance, I think they're 20th now, Xavier University. They got 3 more matches over there, home matches left, and before they get into conference tournament play. But if you get a chance, man, they're phenomenal. Natalie Baines, former All-American. I mean, you could go up and down that roster and pick out some great players. So check them out when you get a chance. Worst is just the international breaks. Absolutely steamrolling any kind of momentum, storylines, tension that could be built during the decision day. I mean, we'll get into it and kind of hopefully, rekindle some of those embers of what is and what isn't on the line on decision day. But it just kind of sucks every year to have the same situation where you're getting really excited about the playoffs, college football's here and all that stuff, and then just kind of soccer just kind of gets tucked away a little bit.
Yeah, there's a bit of a lull there for sure, which again, as you said, hopefully we can stoke that fire a little bit tonight as we go and talk more about decision day. Coach, best and worst.
Yeah, my best is the MLS academies actually showing up for the U20 World Cup. If you haven't been following at all, the U20 U.S. men's team fell to Morocco yesterday in the quarterfinals, but had big wins over France and Italy along the way. So pretty good showing overall, even if they didn't get quite as far as I think they were hoping. But for me, the headline there is that the MLS academy players, not young dual nationals, not young Americans that moved overseas as kids like a Christian Pulisic lifting these guys up, but you guys like Frankie Westfield from Philadelphia Union leading this team and being standout performers. And I think that just bodes really well, not only for MLS, but for American soccer in general. My worst is the pundits giving no love to Miles Robinson. I was so thrilled to see him get the start with U.S. men's national team, considering he's been in camp and missing FC Cincinnati games to ride the pine for them in the past. And I listened to a lot of soccer pods, and basically they didn't mention him at all, like doing all the breakdowns, didn't talk about him at all. The best I got was like the Total Soccer Show gave me about 8 seconds where the compliment was basically, he didn't look out of place. And, with Mark McKenzie not looking very good, I don't want to see Joe Scally at right center back anymore. If they are going to play in a back 3, I think Miles Robinson has to be, one of, if not the answer there. He is solid, if unspectacular. And he has, spectacular burst or acceleration. So I think put those things together and put him alongside the rotting husk of old man Tim Ream out there, and I think that he looks pretty good. So, come on, pundits, give Miles Robinson some love.
It's like that menu item at a restaurant, Miles Robinson. It's like that staple menu item that you always go with. So you just kind of, it's there, you know what I mean? It doesn't really like excite you like a Tim Ream that like was away from the team for like almost a half decade and then came back and saved the day at the U.S. team. So I think Miles Robinson, unfortunately, is a victim of he's always around, and he's not the new sexy toy from Europe that we can play with.
So all I heard there is that Tim Ream is the McRib. That's what I heard.
Yes, he is. Exactly. Or the snack wrap.
Eventually Miles Robinson is going to be that if he doesn't see much time. Maybe he'll come back in a couple years and be that.
Yeah, age like fine wine.
Yeah. Rupesh in the chat says on the Scuffed podcast, they said that Miles should be the right center back if they go with a 3 center back system. Also, Rupesh says, so if you have a best and worst and you're watching tonight, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Rupesh says his best is Miles actually getting playing time, and worst is me calling him an idiot. And to say, like, to give some context for that, since I threw it up on the screen, Rupesh, I believe, was recognized by somebody as Rupesh from Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Like they said, I hear your name all the time in the chat. And he said, yeah, I'm a commenter. I'm not on the show, but they recognize his name. And, So I said, yeah, we only highlight the intelligent comments or the really absurd comments, and you can decide which category yours fits in. So I guess he decided what category his fits in by saying that I called him that. So anyway, Rupesh, we're glad to have you in the chat each and every week. We do appreciate your comments, intelligent or absurd. We love that you're here. And if there's others watching live, we appreciate your comments too, so drop those in. I'll move on and share my best and worst. My worst, I'm going to piggyback off Justin and say just the length of the Major League Soccer postseason. And you kind of said this week in between, the second to last game and decision day, but we've got wild card matches that pick up right after, almost immediately after decision day. So October 18th is decision day. Wild card matches start October 22nd, but then the MLS Cup final isn't until December 6th. And there's a gap, I believe, from the end of the first round to the start of the second round. That's almost 2 weeks. I think
it's another international break.
Yeah, it's November 9th, and then it picks up again November 23rd. So the length of MLS postseason is crazy. Now, that brings me to my best is right now, I mentioned it earlier, we're in postseason soccer in Indiana. I assume Ohio is at this point too. And it is going so fast. We played 3 games in 5 days this last week, and it was just bonkers. The excitement, the energy, the passion, it is all coming fast and hard and aggressive, and it's so fun, and it's done almost in no time. So we're to regional semifinals at this point. We got 3 or 4 more games until state championship, and I love this part of soccer for the high school level. And then you get to Major League Soccer, and it's so spread out and so stretched out. You lose a little bit of that energy for sure. Rupesh says that's a reason to change Major League Soccer schedule potentially. So anyway,
yes, and I mean, there's just so many ridiculous problems with the MLS schedule. I mean, remember the rivalry week? I mean, that was months ago, but they had to play midweek games the week of rivalry week, so no one cared. There was no build up to the storylines all week long. It was just oh yeah, FC Cincinnati's playing Columbus. It's just another game, I guess. It's those kind of things are what kill momentum in this sport. It's ridiculous. And I know there may not be a full, I know there's theories where we're switching over to whatever and all that stuff, but just common sense. I mean, February to December is kind of ridiculous at this point. And you add all these other competitions in, maybe just protect the integrity of the schedule itself instead of worrying so much about adding more and more competitions. Because if you give July back, that's 2 weeks that you can avoid that. So maybe that falls on the MLS Cup final, a week between and stuff like that. Maybe there is no right solution. But it's just laughable how bad the schedule is.
Yeah. And we can talk about that. As a season wrapping up, we can talk more about potential for, the schedule change in the future for MLS, what they're going to do, how they're going to do that. And I do think that's something to keep on the radar for sure for us. We do want to get into a little bit of FC Cincinnati news. If you haven't heard, Cincinnati has qualified for the 2026 CONCACAF Champions Cup. Woohoo! Yep. Round of applause there. And I know, Justin, you already said, protecting the integrity of the schedule, adding in all these additional competitions. Are you guys excited about Cincinnati's participation in another CONCACAF Champions Cup next year?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would take that over any other than MLS Cup playoffs. I would take Champions Cup every single day of the week. I love, I am a US Open Cup homer. I love it. But that's the pinnacle for me, for FC Cincinnati. When we can start going to CONCACAF Champions Cup and just consistently being a player in those last weeks of that competition, that's what I want to see from us. I think it's great to win MLS stars over your jersey and stuff like that, but to be really become a pedigree in this region, this hemisphere, you have to compete in CONCACAF Champions Cup and really kind of just flip the narrative of, hey, Liga MX teams have the unfair advantage. It would be really nice to see MLS team just come out and just really shake that narrative a part. And hopefully FC Cincinnati, as long as you got a ticket to the dance, you have a chance to win the cup.
There you go. Coach, you excited about CONCACAF Champions Cup?
Yeah, I'm a sicko, so of course. And by the time this part of the season gets here, I'm thinking like, man, got to do the pod Monday. Like it starts to be a bit of a grind, even though I'm so excited about the games. But come January, I'm going to be starved for some FCC soccer. So the fact that they just start that much earlier in February because they're in Champions Cup makes me quite thrilled. Plus, like Justin said, it's really cool to have the purity of the Champions Cup with the qualification and everything. So it's not like Leagues Cup, which kind of feels like a dirty tournament, right? But also you get the fun of getting to go play teams from other countries, especially like that first match is usually, a Caribbean team or a team from Honduras or something. It's pretty cool, right? And then to go on and play, 2 years in a row, have to play one of the big clubs from Mexico. But those are the kinds of matches that are really fun as a fan to get to see your team participate in.
Yeah, we got FC Bitlinger in the chat says the CONCACAF Champions Cup gets us CONCACAF recognition for youth development players. We get to see someone other than Red Bulls or New York City FC for sure. And I would agree. I think it gives Cincinnati an opportunity to see some different styles of play, different type of players, some recognition on an international stage. And honestly, if nothing else, I like having some games that mean something preseason for MLS. So our guys have got some run out already. They've got some competition on their legs already. It's something that means something and can come out strong. Now, did we see that this year? Maybe not. But the more we're there, the more we'll be prepared for it for sure. So that was the big news that released today. I do want to talk through some injuries, the FC Cincinnati injury report, because we are going into the postseason. We've got one game left, October 18th. From what we know, Obi is back and the training wheels are off, is what has been reported. So we should see him get some run out this week. Matt Miazga, potential, I think, Coach, you were doing the math, I think, potentially for the first game of playoffs.
Yeah, so on he re-aggravated that injury on October 2nd, and Pat Noonan said the timeline was 3 to 4 weeks. So if he hits the early part of that timeline, that would put him available for the first playoff match. I would not bet on that, but I would say if he doesn't have another setback, if the series goes to a game 3, I would be pretty sure that he'd be available for that one.
Yeah. We've got Roman Celentano is, I think, working his way back. May or may not see him this week, but from all reports, he is on his way back to full health and should be back with the team. Brad Smith, same thing, late October, I think we heard on his return. Orishano and Ender. Ender came back from Venezuelan camp because of his groin injury, I believe, against Red Bull. So it sounds like he was there. Is that what we heard? That he was actually there and pulled out of camp because of that injury?
I feel like that was the word, that he went down to camp to either, depending on who you talk to either test it, or he knew he wasn't going to play, but he wanted to be in camp around the national team guys and whatever. But the real newsy part of that news is just simply that he didn't play for Venezuela because he was hurt. So I would doubt that he's available for FC Cincinnati. And who knows? We haven't heard anything about him or Orishano in terms of timeline.
Yeah, Orishano is the one that makes me a little nervous because of the hamstring. Who knows? That takes a while to heal. And he pulled up after, 1 minute in the last match against Red Bull. So that's a little concerning. I'm surprised we haven't heard much about that, but I wouldn't expect to see him this week against Montreal. And then players with national teams, we had 7 players out with their national teams this week. Didn't hear much. We looked for some stats for some of them. The most we got was Miles Robinson starting for the U.S. national team. And that's about it. I mean,
I will add in, Kevin Denke played 2 90s with his team against DR Congo and South Sudan. We don't have the stats, but him playing 2 90s is really good for FC Cincinnati since he's not going to play on Saturday because of yellow card accumulation. And then on the other side of that, Teenage Hadeb played the first game against South Africa and played a full 90, and then was pretty good, I think. Zimbabwe had something like 30% of the possession. So it was all the defense, and he put up pretty good defensive stats there in a game that I think they ended up drawing. So the fact that he only played the first game and then was on the bench is also good for FC Cincinnati because he should be a little bit fresher. We know that Guidi played a full 90 against Ireland, and his team plays again tomorrow, so we won't see about him. Kai played 86 minutes total over the 2 matches. So yeah, the FC Cincinnati players getting some run out in international matches, and it seems like, pretty good in terms of the amount of time they're getting to stay sharp for FC Cincinnati without wearing them down.
Do we have any stats on how many defensive bicycle kicks Teenage Hadeb did in the international play?
I would say it's got to be at least 2.
It's got to be at least 2 in the first half.
Definitely got to splash on the social media circuit. One thing that came up in that pairing, I don't know that this is completely segueing the conversation here, but Brad Smith, I saw he was getting his little putt-putt golf game going on at Fan Appreciation Night. Did you guys see that? The festivities they do over at TQL. I think that's super cool that FC Cincinnati puts that on. So even when the guy's injured, he's putting in minutes for the club.
Yeah.
So it's all for the crest.
Yeah, we heard there was a Luca Orishano sighting playing cornhole at Served by the Pros night. So he was out there. And then Kai Kamara was announced that he retired officially for real this time from the Sierra Leone national team. So, him playing with Cincinnati, like, can we get the guy a goal? Like, before he's done in Major League Soccer, I don't want to be known as the team that kept him out of the net. So love to see him get out there before he retires from Major League Soccer and get a goal for the one team that he has not scored for here at the end. And then I won't go there. Never mind. I was going to turn it to the Bengals, and Joe Flacco's 40 years old, and the number of times we heard about a 40-year-old out on the field, like, let's get Kai Kamara some love. But I won't go there. We do have a match coming up. Cincinnati has a match coming up against Montreal at TQL Stadium to close out the season. It's decision day, and Cincinnati. The decision really is Cincinnati is in. What position they will finish in. Will it be second, third? I think they could even slip as far as fourth, potentially. No, second or third, but depending on how Miami does in their match against Nashville this week. So there's still something to play for FC Cincinnati. They will host a playoff match, but will it be as a second place finisher, the third place finisher? It's a 6 p.m. match, TQL Stadium. As we've already mentioned, Kevin Denke's out on yellow card suspension, which is why it's good that he got 2 90s for his national team. We've got, Montreal is already eliminated from the playoffs, so they've got nothing to play for other than trying to spoil Cincinnati's hopes of finishing second, which whatever. But those teams can be dangerous coming in because they just want to see what they can do, right? As we look at this game against Montreal, right? What are you guys hoping to see from FC Cincinnati besides a win? I assume it's a win. Besides a win that would make you feel like this team is ready for round 1 of the playoffs.
I think there's 2 different things, offensively and defensively. So I'm gonna give what I want to see offensively, and then I'll stop and I'll let Justin weigh in since I jumped in when he's getting ready to say something. The biggest thing that I want to see offensively for this team is for them to start to put together 3-player combinations in the final third. So let me explain what I mean by that. So far it seems an awful lot that they are relying on one player making a moment of brilliance. Kevin Denke turning somebody, dribbling the length of the field, and then hitting a rocket to score. That's a one-player combination, if you will, right? When they look really good this year, even though it's only been 2 players, it's been Evander getting on the ball and finding Brenner, and just like with the perfect pass, who then finishes. And that's all well and good, but those are moments of brilliance from players who are just kind of like finding themselves in areas where they can be dangerous. When you start to see 3-player combinations, something like Mark Zook gets the ball on the right, plays it into Evander in the middle of the field, who then one touches it to a Brenner running through. So Brenner is the third player there. That is when you know that these guys are starting to be in sync and their timing, because Brenner has to start that run as Mark Zook is passing it to make sure that he's there for when Evander touches it through. So those sorts of 3-player combinations will tell me that this offense is really starting to click and understand how they want to create chances, rather than just relying on guys going out and playing, street vibesy based street soccer.
I will let me back up to your Kevin Denke comment, because that guy didn't even need to get to the final third. So it was like just a one-man show to the edge of the final third. And then that's where his brilliance comes. But no, I know what you're saying. You talk about repetitive patterns of play, or predictable patterns of play early on this season. And as we've talked about that. You've used that phrase several times. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say in these 3-player combinations, is knowing where each other are, where we're going to be, and what the next run is going to be. So even thinking the second pass, not even who am I going to pass to, but where am I going to go after he receives the ball, or where's he going to go on with his next pass. So you got to have some predictability and predictable patterns to see that develop. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good shout there. I think I would say more combos with Brenner and Evander. I think they are key in those 3-player combinations. But we've seen when those two can link up and play off of each other, how much fun and exciting the soccer can be for us watching, but even for them playing. And so I think it's different if it's Evander, Kevin Denke, and Kai Kamara than if it's Evander, Brenner, and Kevin Denke, or Evander, Brenner, and Kai Kamara. I think those two are really key as far as link-up play moving into the playoffs. Justin?
I want to be, I guess, a little bit realist here. I don't think anything that we're going to see with this lineup against CF Montreal is going to give me a lot of confidence coming into the conference. We'll say it doesn't move the needle. We'll say, right? I may have the confidence going into the MLS playoffs, but I don't think with how disjointed this lineup is going to be, I think this is one of those games where we're just going to try to get 3 points, and if it's too much to overcome, I mean, there's just really nothing that CF Montreal is playing for at all. So we're basically, we got a punching bag in front of us, one that we really had a hard time dealing with. I know, the scoreline may have not represented it, but we were having really hard time defensively against CF Montreal back a few months ago. I'm sure there's a lot of changes, but it's one of those games where you're going to be watching us play against one of the worst teams in the East, with several key contributors out. And maybe those contributors are going to be out for an extended period going into the playoffs. But there's nothing that, I mean, unless just we know how Pat likes to rotate players. We know how he likes to set up his starting 11. I don't imagine that anybody's just going to flash in the pan and say, "Ooh, a week before the playoffs," and say, "Ooh, that's the guy we're going to go with as our center back," or "This is a person that we really like." I think it's just managing minutes, getting out of that match with hopefully 3 points. If not, I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I don't think it really changes your fortunes or it changes where you play the game against Inter Miami if you make it to that round. But I just don't think there's a lot that's going to be determined here. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Justin, full of positivity tonight. No, I think that I can't argue with that, right? And so I do think the only thing I would say to that is I think Pat Noonan wants to win everything he can. When he goes out, he's going to roll out a lineup that is going to be a lineup to win. I will say I think, Montreal having nothing to play for, I think makes a team scary because you can overlook them. It doesn't matter as far as us being in or out of the playoffs. I get that. But I still think Noonan wants to finish in second, and he's going to know Montreal is going to throw everything they can to spoil that. Now, on the flip side of that, we don't have Kevin Denke, who would likely be our starting striker in a playoff run, or, if he's not out on yellow cards, he's probably starting this match. So it does bring up the question, I think, then who starts? But maybe even more so, who gets some time? Maybe late in the second half, maybe, 60 minutes. After 60 minutes, they get the last 30. Do we see guys that maybe we haven't seen in a while just get some time just in case? Or do we still see a strong lineup there at the end of the game, Coach? What would you say to that?
Well, before I get to that, I want to rewind to this idea about Montreal being a punching bag because, I heard from a very credible podcast called The Jersey Swap, plug for Jeff Tebbets and The Jersey Swap, that Montreal plays much better on the road. And we all know, if we've been to TQL this year, that FC Cincinnati has seemed to struggle there. So I think it will be a tough match. And I think, when you talk about the ability for a coach to get his message across, seeing some things, even if it was all second string players, if you start to see some things develop of how they want to play, I think that's positive. Not to mention, I don't think this will happen, but if you go and beat Montreal 4 or 5-0 at home, how much confidence then does that team have? It doesn't matter who is in front of you. How much confidence then do they have going into the playoffs to be able to win at home that might not exist now? In terms of strategy with subs, the actual question you asked me, Brian. I think that also is a really, really important thing that you want to see here, because again, even if you're not worried about the exact combination of players, because you might not see that during the postseason, if a guy like Dado comes in late in the game and scores again or something, like having that confidence, not only for Pat to have the confidence in him, but him to have the confidence in himself. I mean, that can only do good for these guys. So, I would expect Pat to play this straight up with basically, if Kevin Denke was hurt, who he would start. I don't think it's going to be a try this or let's just see just in case. I think I'm expecting Jabari to start because that is who has been coming first off the bench. And then I think from there, your subs, you'll probably see Kai Kamara or something come on, depending on what the game state is, if FCC is up or if they're down a goal, need a goal, that sort of a thing. Because I think Pat will play this as if it's a playoff match and as if this result mattered in that sort of way. Because what you said, Brian, not only does he want to win everything, that's also the way to prepare your team for the playoffs, is to play this game like it matters.
I got a question about midfield. Do we think that Gidi is going to be paired with Obi to start the match, or is it going to be Buka?
I'd be surprised if Obi started, just because he's been out for so long. I wouldn't be against him starting, especially even if the doctors say let's keep him to 45 minutes. I think starting him and playing him and then making a sub at halftime could be a great way to go. But when I look at things, I think that Gidi is the Obi replacement. So I think that it would be Buka and Obi. I think Gidi and Obi are much more similar than Buka and Gidi, if that makes sense. Gidi has shown more ability than Obi going forward, I think. But also he has that ranginess, that ability to really, really cover a lot of ground in the midfield that Obi has that makes him great.
Yeah. Buka is I'd hate to see Gidi replace Buka in that and being paired with Obi. Buka's put in best 11 midfield performance, I think, for much of the season. And so I don't think Gidi is at that level quite yet. I do think Gidi does, like you said, give us a little bit more going forward than Obi, but man, I miss Obi when he's out there. He shuts everything down and locks it up. So I would like to see him get some time. Again, I don't know that he starts. I bet they give him 30 minutes at the end of the game is my guess for Obi, just to get him out there again. Save him from maybe getting a yellow card. If he's only out there 30 minutes, maybe he won't get one heading into the playoffs. Who knows? We do have Rupesh here is also just saying the thing that would make him confident in the playoffs is less horseshoe of despair, just passing the ball around the top of the box with no real aim of going forward. And then we've got a mention of Dado Valenzuela. Dado killed the other team. I don't know who they played an FCC2 finale to get them to the tournament. What was that? Orlando. There you go. So it sounds like he's killing it there with FCC2. Would like to see him maybe get some time with the first team again, but I don't know that he will with the guys that we've brought in at this point.
So can I say now what I would like to see defensively from this team against
Absolutely.
Montreal? And I'll get you guys' thoughts on this as well, because I think it brings up this midfield that we're talking about. What I want to see defensively is for Montreal to have less time and space just directly in front of the FC Cincinnati back line when the ball's in the middle third. I feel like lately teams can pass through that when they get through that first initial line of pressure, they have acres to just run at the back line. And it seems to me like Pat Noonan has his squad set up where everybody goes forward and tries to score. And then there's all this space, or, midfielders, you have two midfielders sitting back to try to eat up that space. And then there's no fluidity going forward. And that's what we saw against Red Bull. So I want to see that balance. I want to see maybe, let's just say it's Guidi and Buka out there to start. I want to see Buka going forward and Guidi sitting back, but him eating up that ground and not letting teams just go through that area unopposed. If it's Obi, I want to see him doing that job, like less time and space for those guys to just run at our back line.
And I think that's the thing that we miss without Obi on the field. That's the space that Obi occupies, and Obi's like a torpedo to the ball at that point. When a guy comes through past that midfield, the first midfielder, past Buka, past whoever, he's the first guy on the ball chewing up that space. And Brian Anunga has done that at times this season, but I do think since Guidi has been in and playing a little bit more, we have seen that midfield space open up because he is trying to get forward a little bit more, where Obi doesn't seem as interested to go forward. And so he'll sit there as a 6 and eat that up. So maybe that's what he brings, that's the very thing that we've been missing, that we've seen a little bit with Anunga, but with him not playing as much here recently, we've got that space opened up.
I'm going to be the Debbie Downer a little bit more here.
No way.
I'm normally the vibes guy, so I'm actually enjoying the role swap. No, for me, Obi's my boy, right? But the communication earlier in the season, and even touching parts of last season with Buka on positioning on the play, I think we overextended too much on one side, committing ourselves, and that left us really naked when they were able to flip the ball. So that would be something I would definitely caution about Obi. I think Obi has had that. He is the heat-seeking missile back there. He will go where the ball is 100 miles per hour with reckless abandonment, but he needs to be able to develop that partnership with Buka, where spacing is still principle.
Yeah. And
I agree completely, Justin. Like Obi, I think that is his biggest downside is that he is not positionally disciplined. He gets sucked towards the ball when he shouldn't, which, that's also his great quality, is being able to go to the ball all the time. But there are times when you want him to just sit in space that he doesn't. But I haven't seen Guidi be better at that. So again, I would just see Obi out there and at least covering that ground, and then, let Pat deal with how he uses the weak side center back or whatever to account for that, rather than this space we're in now where, like I said, it really feels like all the midfielders are forward and they just pass through, the other team passes through FC Cincinnati, or the midfielders sit back and then FC Cincinnati doesn't generate anything.
I will say this, that, looking back, FC Cincinnati's fortunes changed when Obi got here. Like, he changed the way we played. He changed the style. Because we had a guy that was so good, so aggressive in the midfield, he changed our fortunes, right? But to have a guy as young as Samuel Guidi, who we've compared at times, he's a little bit like Obi. He's not quite like Buka, but he can go forward a little bit more intentionally than Obi can. He's good on the ball. I think our future with a guy like Samuel Guidi getting time with Obi and learning from a guy like Obi, a little bit more veteran player, that's been so good for us. The upside for Samuel Guidi, I think, is really maybe early to say, but I think it's really, really positive moving forward if we can hang on to a guy like that and get him some minutes with experienced players like an Obi, like Buka, like Matt Miazga, like those guys behind him in the back line. I'm really excited to see him moving forward.
I'm not dropping the axe on Obi, but one of the biggest challenge for Obi will always be the price tag that we brought him in on. Mm-hmm. It's hard to negotiate your way down far enough down the chain, unless there are significant circumstances that change that equation for a player. But I think ultimately Giddy is a wiser move for FC Cincinnati based on that money value, right? We've already walked Obi down a couple pegs recently, so and coming back from the injury, who knows how this is going to go? I mean, we'd love to imagine Obi just coming out, just going absolutely wild, but it takes time coming back from injuries like that, and I think we're all just really excited that he was able to get back this season, because there was some serious doubts when we saw the injury that he may not make it back.
Yeah, we've had a few of those this season, right? With Nick Haglund.
2 years in a row, man.
Yeah.
This is 2 years in a row. Like I didn't sign up for this. We got so lucky in 2022 and 2023. We just completely avoided injuries. I think 2022, we didn't have a single injury that lasted more than 2 weeks. And then now we're just getting hosed with them.
And yet we've weathered the storm better this year.
Exactly.
With some other players. Man, the summer transfer window, like we did a much better job there than last year, filling some gaps with some of these injuries for sure. And it'll be interesting. I know we've got writers working on, postseason transfers, who's still on contract, who will we see next year? And we'll talk more about that as we go. I don't want to get too far into that, but we do have some promising players filling some holes for some of these injuries, and we'll leave it there. As we move on, we do want to thank Beyond Exercise, our second half show sponsor. They're a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free, and they've helped some of our local MLS, MLS Next Pro, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at Go Beyond Exercise. And maybe they're a reason some of these guys are coming back this season. I don't know. Maybe so. Maybe not. We do have Decision Day coming up. October 18th is Decision Day. And as we've already mentioned, that FC Cincinnati is already in the playoffs. The only decision is going to be, do they finish second or third? Montreal really has nothing to play for but spoiler to keep us from that second place spot. But they will come fast and aggressive, I believe, in this last game. Nobody wants to go out a loser on Decision Day. But there are some other matches that are pretty significant matches that we have our eyes on, notably the Nashville-Miami match that could determine where Cincinnati finishes, depending on the outcome of our match. As you guys look around the league, there are some, besides Nashville, Miami, and we can talk a little bit about that one too. What are the games that you two personally have your eyes on that you are going to be, they're going to be electrifying games and they have the most at stake?
I'll jump in there. I think it's got quite a bit at stake, but I'm like a closet Vancouver stan, and what they've done this season, it's remarkable. And I think what Dallas has done has been remarkable. They play each other up in BC Palace, but I think that match is incredibly interesting, not only for what it has in context of the Western Conference standings, but it also Dallas is playing for a playoff position. But I mean, with Lucho Acosta going out, you had that Vinny last year bowing out for Vancouver, bringing in Thomas Mueller, who's probably the most exciting player addition this summer. So to have those Musa versus Mueller matchup, and they're not teams that we're just overly saturated with in MLS. I think that's the matchup I'm definitely circling as high intensity. I think that Vancouver would be with how devastating it's been the last few years with the unfortunate matchups that they've had. I think it would be really good to put a crown to that those Canadian championships that they've won and really solidified themselves as a real player in the Western Conference with Western Conference regular season title.
Well, Justin cannot claim to be a closet Vancouver fan anymore when he calls BC Place BC Palace, and he says Thomas Mueller is the most exciting summer edition when you have Sun Young down the coast. Uh, definitely a bit of homer talk there. But I actually agree. The Vancouver match is a fascinating one because big implications for Vancouver and Dallas. Vancouver is still looking to wrap up the 1 seed in the West, and also big implications for FC Cincinnati, because if FC Cincinnati win and Dallas can upset Vancouver, that means that should FC Cincinnati get to MLS Cup, it will be hosted at TQL Stadium. Right now, the only teams in the West that could pass, if FC Cincinnati lose and San Diego wins, San Diego can pass them. And Vancouver is ahead of them as we speak. So we would need to better Vancouver's result. If Vancouver ties or loses and FCC wins, then FC Cincinnati has a path to hosting MLS Cup. But outside of that, there are a lot of really interesting games in the East, because even though both teams, and most of them other than Nashville and Miami, don't have something to play for, one side, the Orlando, the Chicago, the Columbus, all of those teams have something to play for, because they can all finish, jump like multiple spots, because it's so tight at the bottom of the East. So as an FC Cincinnati fan, seeing what's going to happen with those players, with those teams, the only teams in the Eastern playoff picture that FC Cincinnati can't face no matter what is Philadelphia and Inter Miami. There's a path for FC Cincinnati to face every other single team in the first round of the playoffs, because the table is so tight at the bottom there.
And we talked about that a little bit last week, depending on the outcome of these matches. Like, who would you love to see Cincinnati play? And we both, Coach, you and I both weighed in on this. Justin, you weren't on the show last week, but I want to give you an opportunity. If you could pick Cincinnati's opponent and you could just, wave your magic wand, move the pieces on the chessboard to make things work out the way you want them to, who's Cincinnati playing in this first round?
Well, unfortunately, New York Red Bulls isn't available, because that would be my number one selection. But I think for me, I'm going to go the sheepish way. I'm going to go very sheepish here, and I'm going to go Chicago Fire. That would be the team that I would want to play in that scenario. I think the other teams have given us quite a bit of fits. I think Columbus, when they're locked in, when they see that orange and blue on the other side of the pitch, they're a very dangerous team to play. Oscar Perea is not a coach I want to mess with in the playoffs for various reasons. And Nashville, I think they're an offensive, explosive team that if FC Cincinnati, for whatever reason, just gets down a goal or two early, I don't know if FC Cincinnati is one of those teams that's built to overcome that. So I'm going to go with Chicago Fire, slow and steady. I do not disrespect Greg Berhalter with that pick. I'm just stating the obvious. I think the Fire would be the team that are just happy to be there this year. So I'm going to take Chicago.
All right, I'm going to double down on my pick in Columbus. I don't think we've got anything to worry about in Columbus, and I would love to see them come to TQL and us knock them out of the playoffs this year. I do want to give a shout out. We're going to get into some best of MLS awards, like our picks for Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, Coach of the Year. But before we get there, I just want to give a shout out to a couple teams, right? Vancouver Whitecaps finished 8th in the 2024 season, finished at the bottom of the playoff table. At least they got in. Now they were in the race for Supporters Shield this year. They're in the race for first in the West. And then San Diego FC wasn't even a thing last year in Major League Soccer, and they're fighting for first position in the West. And Philadelphia Union, as much as I hate to say this, they weren't expected to do anything this year. They offloaded some players, a new coach, weren't expected to even make the playoff line, but according to a number of my friends who are Philadelphia Union fans, and here they are, Supporters Shield winners going into the playoffs atop the league. So shout out to those teams, man. We were there at one point. Cincinnati was there, and now it's hard to hold your spot at the top, and we've done it for a number of years now. So kudos to Coach Noonan and the players.
We've never been where San Diego was.
No. We've never been where San Diego was first and then jumping in, but we've been. Yeah, you're right. I can't argue that.
Quite a contrast.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into some of our best of MLS awards. Let's start with MVP. If you had to name an MVP of the league, and it's not Lionel Messi, Like maybe he's the runaway winner, maybe he's not. I don't know. I think that's a foregone conclusion in many of our minds. But if it's not Lionel Messi, who is it?
I'm gonna go with a weird one, and I'm gonna get hosed for this pick. Ty Baribo is my pick, and I know everybody. Woo, yeah, what has he done lately? Ty Baribo really steadied the ship, and I tried to. I'm just not like preseason. Justin is all over this kind of stuff, but I looked at the task of compiling the actual flow of Philadelphia's standings this year, and when Ty Baribo turned it on mid through the season, that really propelled Philadelphia. But I couldn't show it on a graphic, so you'll have to trust me. Ty Baribo made the difference, put the foot in the sand that propelled Philadelphia Union to this incredible season, unpredictable season, and now they're Supporter Shield champs. Can't take that away.
Yeah. I mean, Ty Baribo plays great against FC Cincinnati. Multiple goals, most games that he plays. But other than that, man, I mean, he's a steady player, he's a good player, but I wouldn't put him in the
he has
MVP
16 goals or something like that.
It's 16 goals. How many of those were against Cincinnati, though?
He's not even a starter for Philadelphia Union anymore. Damiani and Orla have been starting. How's the bench player going to be?
The MVP, man. He's the
You should have just said Dato Valenzuela to suck up to Brian so he doesn't suspend you again.
I'm one of those guys. If you take that player off that team at any point in the season, you take him off the team. What
Bradley Carnell did that. The coach just said he pulled him off the team and put him on the bench.
Yeah, and
after the summer.
And since then, they've only won 1-0, 6-0, and 1-0. So,
yeah, that's all. No,
all right, Coach, bring some seriousness to this MVP conversation. Let's get Ty Baribo out of the conversation. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I actually love Justin's shout because I hate the whole like MVP and just picking the obvious guy who scored the most goals or whatever. That said, I'm going to do kind of exactly that. Not the most goals, but Anders Dreyer. He's got a ton of publicity, but the reason why I would go with Dreyer out in San Diego is because he has kind of had to do it by himself a lot. Chucky Lozano has been in and out of the lineup. San Diego felt so confident that they just kicked one of their top scorers, Iloski, to the curb and let Philadelphia Union pick him up all the way so that he could start also over Ty Baribo. But the point being, Anders Dreyer has really been solid the entire season. He always seems to step up in the big matches and game-winning goals, and he's kind of done it alone. So I think if it's not Messi, it's got to be Dreyer.
I can't argue with that. I will throw my pick in the hat, and I'll be a homer here and go with Evander for a couple of reasons. One, because I called it at the beginning of the season that FC Cincinnati could have their second MVP candidate in Evander. So I'm going to stick with my pick. But you like Ty Baribo's, like Justin's call on Ty Baribo. If you take Evander off the field, there's not a lot of creativity out there. It can happen. It has happened. But even we've seen Evander, like when Evander does Evander things like in Portland, and he plays with that level of intensity and intentionality, the things that guy can do. But even when he's not playing with that and he only gets 20 touches, 22 touches on the ball, he still finds a way to do something creative with the ball to create a chance. Now, I've been frustrated at times and have made it known here on the podcast that when sometimes he doesn't seem like he's playing with his full intensity and he's just kind of let the game come to him. But that is his style. And when it works, it works. And when it doesn't work, he's still one of the better players on the field. And so I don't think Cincinnati is sitting in second place right now without Evander. So he's my shout for MVP. I don't think he'll really win it, but I think his name needs to be in that conversation.
Yeah, good thing none of us have to worry about being right here because it's going to be Lionel Messi.
That's right. That's why we said MVP, if not Messi, right? Absolutely. Let's jump
and good on him. I mean, like, let me pause there and add that. I mean, what a hell of a season. I mean, 28 goals. I mean, it's just insane what he's done. And he's the greatest player of all time. So what did we expect? But I know there was a lot of stomach ache about Messi and the overhyped attention that he gets, sometimes unwarranted in the past few seasons, but definitely warranted this year. So I think that's probably one of the most lethal campaigns we've seen in MLS history.
Yeah, for sure. But you pull him off the field for Miami. They still have Suarez. They still have guys. They're still winning games, right? And so
third, fourth, and regardless.
Yeah. So you bring up, is it all about the stats? Is it all about what the player brings to the team? Right. We could have that conversation, but I think you're right. I think Messi's had a great season. Absolutely. Sometimes looks like he's toying with players that should be out on the field with him, but when you're that good, that's what you can do, I guess. Let's jump to Coach of the Year. Looks like we have a couple shouts for the same coach. Justin, you start. You and I think, have the same name on our rundown here, and then Coach can tell us why we're right or wrong. I'm going with Bradley Carnell.
Yeah, I'm going with Bradley Carnell too. And I don't know if it's necessarily, I mean, you can make a case for several coaches. I thought it was really impressive to see Dean Smith kind of morph his philosophy a little bit to the style of MLS and the attacking players that he had on his roster. So I could go a little shout on that. But Bradley Carnell, I mean, getting pushed out of St. Louis and then having Jim Curtin, who most of us regarded as one of the best coaches in the league, and we pretty much shipped that boat all the way down the waterfall. I mean, that was Philadelphia. I think most people were projecting 12th, 13th finish without Jim Curtin and without the likes of the players that they've had on that roster. But Carnell just came in with just pure chaos and settled the ship and got results. So hats off to him.
And I know here's what Coach is going to say. He's a guy that can get anybody to run through walls for him, but it runs out. Like the gas runs out. The
walls get thick.
Yeah, the walls get thick. Like nobody can sustain that. He didn't sustain it in St. Louis. He has sustained it somehow in Philadelphia to get them to the top of the league. And so that's why he's getting my vote for Coach of the Year. I don't know how deep it'll go in the playoffs. But to this point, to take a team that, again, wasn't expected to do any damage in Major League Soccer this year and to finish not only near the top, but at the very top, I'm giving it to Bradley Carnell. Coach, tell us why we're wrong and who you're going with.
Well, the reason why you're wrong is because Bradley Carnell, like you could get Ted Lasso or any American football coach, like any motivator in there, because the roster that they have put together, that Ernst Tanner's put together in Philadelphia, is so solid for a high pressing style. All you have to do is get a motivator and just say press like crazy. We've seen consistently when Bradley Carnell has to make tactical decisions that he fails miserably at it. Like they got trounced like 6-0 in Vancouver a couple weeks ago. And when you look like, okay, well, big deal. They went on the road. They had a midweek match. They were resting guys. Well, yeah, they were resting guys for the US Open Cup. And you know what he did? He subbed his starters in the 40th minute, 5 minutes before halftime, when they were losing like 3 or 4-0. The game was already gone. You had chosen to rest your players. Why would you put them in? Okay, if you're going to put them in, at least put them in at halftime and save yourself the sub window, bro. Like it was the most like head scratching moment. And this is the kind of thing that I just cannot abide as a coach.
Was Ty MVP on the field at that point, Coach?
Exactly.
I have no idea.
Well, but I think the thing I'm going to push back a little bit before you get to yours. I mean, they lost Julian Carranza and they ended up being pretty rudderless at the end of last year, right? And then going into this year, we have Gazdag signed with Columbus. I mean, these are staples of the team, and you had Martinez, I think was midway through last year. So there was so much turnover in a 6-month period when they kicked off the ball in February that I was still kind of flabbergasted that somehow this, I mean, there was people willing, players were like debating whether or not to hold little lockouts from the front office decisions. Like they were so irate and somehow or another, they got the perfect guy to kind of stabilize the ship a little bit, and it's worked.
Yeah, they did. They got the perfect guy. His name is Danley Jean-Jacques, and he plays center midfielder, and he might be the best center mid in the league. And you pair him with Lukic, and that is the best tandem in the league. And so you're right. They got those guys. They're just not the guys on the sideline. Anyway, agree to disagree. Honestly, the fact that Philadelphia finished 12th last year and won the Supporters Shield, and with losing all these players, I agree. Just on paper, I totally could see Bradley Carnell winning it, and I would have to just shrug and be like, it makes sense on paper. As a coach, when I look at his decisions, I'm like, he's not doing anything over there other than telling his team to press like crazy for 90 minutes, and they're doing it, So I guess, there's something to that. If you can get your guys to press like crazy for 90 minutes and your GM can get you the roster to do it, maybe it's just a really good combination there. But my pick is Jesper Sorensen in Vancouver, because apparently now I'm the Vancouver homer. Because,
very good pick.
But the thing about Sorensen is he's had all the same things that Bradley Carnell's had to deal with in terms of players leaving, star players being hurt all year, turnover, and all of those things. He also took a team who I think finished 8th last year, and now they're top of the West right now. So he also had a big turnaround. And he's actually doing it by getting them to play really good soccer. Vancouver is a fun team to watch, even play against, because they go out and play, and the intricate patterns, and then bringing in Thomas Mueller, which I know is not a Sorensen thing, but Thomas Mueller fits in that team because of the style of soccer that Sorensen has them playing. So that would be my pick, because I actually like coaches of the year who can actually coach, so sue me.
I'll leave it to coach to want to coach who can actually coach a team. Yeah, very good there. We've got a few other awards that we could get into. We're about out of time. I just want to give a nod to some of these. We don't have time to defend our answers, but newcomer of the year, I'm going with Anders Dreyer and what he's done for everything you said earlier, Coach, what he's done in San Diego. Your guys' shouts there for newcomer of the year in Major League Soccer?
Thomas Mueller.
I'd have to pick Dreyer because I picked him for MVP, but I think Zinkernagels also should be in the conversation.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Defender of the year, I had Tristan Blackman up in.
I got Jack Elliott. Jack Elliott's the best defender ever. No, I that one was a hard one for me.
Goal scoring, Jack Elliott.
I'm gonna abstain this year, because that I normally watch the center backs pretty closely, but this year was pretty tough. You had a couple good selections, but I don't think anybody really had that just absolute standout year. Statistically, there may have, but there wasn't any player that I saw this year that just terrified me in a matchup.
This is where I give my Philly love. I went with all the way through Makanya, who is the center back alongside Jakob Glesnes out there, because I think he's the best defender on the best defensive team. So,
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's a good shout. And then our other one that we actually had listed here that we've got names for is goalkeeper of the year. And that's a position I do watch. I love stats on goalkeepers. And Coach, I think you and I had the same name there, Dane St. Clair. With 29 games played and 28 goals given up. So what an incredible goals against average there, below 1, and then 10 clean sheets on the season. Pretty fantastic.
Yeah. And it's not even just his goals against, it's his post-shot XG numbers. The number of goals he's preventing that should be goals is best in the league too. Actually, I think second best in the league, but it's up there as well.
Yeah. Justin, did you have a goalkeeper of the year?
Evan Leroux.
Evan Leroux. How'd I know?
Oh, Evan Leroux.
How did I know? Stepping in a key moment for Roman Celentano.
Why stop there? MVP, baby.
Absolutely.
That's going to Ty Baribo. You can't give it to him. So if you like what we brought here tonight, the absurdity of Cincinnati Soccer Talk and Jersey Swap and all the good stuff that we have going out on the airwaves and on YouTube. Visit us at Cincinnati Soccer Talk patreon.com/support. Join us on Patreon over there. We've got some good stuff going on there. You get some additional articles and Cliff's thoughts of the day. Sunday morning thoughts. What does he call that? Cliff Sunday morning thoughts is what it is, right after the Saturday games. All kinds of good stuff over there on Patreon. Check that out. Let us know what you think of the show. Send us your comments, your questions, your feedback to feedback@Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We would love to hear from you. And when those questions come in, we do appreciate bringing those in and being able to answer those on the show, and giving some time to those thoughtful questions that you do send in. So feedback@Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Send us your thoughts. Send us your questions. We would love to hear from you. And that brings us, guys, to our final thoughts on the night. I was going to say on the season, but the season's not over yet. Coach, I'm going to let you start us off with your final thought.
Yeah, man, the number of people that I've heard saying about decision day, it doesn't matter who FC Cincinnati play because they're going to bomb out in the first round anyway, because they're, things like their XG numbers aren't good. And, the number of people with this conversation, my final thought is just, hey, let's all try not to decide FCC is going to lose before a postseason ball is even being kicked. Last season, they limped into the playoffs with 1 win, 1 draw, and 3 losses. This year, they're going to go into the playoffs with 3 wins, a draw, plus whatever happens tomorrow. So maybe 4 wins and a draw, maybe worse, but way better than last year. No matter the result, they're going to be better off. And in a world where last year's Red Bulls can make the final, anything can happen, guys. Just enjoy the ride for a second and quit just deciding because the team gives up a bunch of terrible chances that lead to a big XG number and only create world-class goals from world-class players that they automatically can't advance in the playoffs.
Yeah. Coach, thanks for being here tonight. It's good final thought there. Justin, final thought.
I like what Coach said. I think I agree with that. I think first to the pessimistic train is a pretty lame train to be on. So no, but my final thought is just I think it's pretty underly reported in the area. I think we're going to work on that here at CST, but I think the collegiate high school soccer scene is pretty incredible up here, even going into Kentucky. And I just want to give a big shout out to anybody that's got a son or a daughter or listening themselves to those those teams that are still competing in their regionals, progressing through their state tournaments. So I think it's you guys are the lifeblood of the sport for us. You've provided so much joy to the community, so much education. I mean, good Lord. I think there's a lot of armchair parents out there. So some of those players are out there showing them how it's done. So good on them, and good luck to everybody as their state competitions progress.
Yeah. And nobody knows how difficult coaching can be until you've coached the Purple Dinosaurs.
Absolutely.
No, Justin, is good to have you back on the show tonight, man. I pick on you for your
terrible takes.
Yeah, some of your terrible takes this week, but it's always good to have those terrible takes on here every now and then. This is why you're and every now and then co-host. No, seriously, in all seriousness though, it is good to have you back. So thanks for being here. And yeah, good support to younger teams, high school, college age teams, and those even younger developing that will someday be on the field at TQL Stadium, hopefully. My shout tonight for final thought, I'm just going to say, I coach high school soccer, and there's always one player on a team that, you get to the end of the season and you play some of these teams that you're like, we need to get that kid a goal, right? That kid on FC Cincinnati is Kai Kamara. Let's just feed that guy balls all day long this week against Montreal and just get him a goal. Kai Kamara with the winning goal in the 92nd minute would write the story for the end of Cincinnati's season this year, and it would be incredible. So that's my shout. Let's get Kai Kamara on the field and just feed him over and over and over until he gets a goal. He cannot leave Major League Soccer without scoring for the last team that he played for after scoring for every other team that he's been on the field for. So Kai Kamara, game winner this weekend against Montreal. I mean, that's my hope. That's what I'm going for with my final thought. Thanks for listening to this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We will be back next week talking about the playoffs and who Cincinnati will be facing then. We'll see you next Monday night. Thanks for joining us.